Hey everybody, this is Jim of Animateducated, and today we have Dino Crisanti. He's a stop motion animator, a educator at Columbia College in Chicago, a sculptor, and also a toy designer. And he's also a friend of mine that went to Columbia. We both went to the same school. So Dino, what have you been doing? What's going on?
We go way back, you and I. We are both alumni of Columbia College in Chicago, and I am a stop motion animator, and we graduated around the same time. And some years after I graduated, I ended up getting a call from a former teacher of ours, and they said, "Hey, we're looking for somebody to teach stop motion." It was Barry Young, and I said I'd love to. And at the same time, I was switching over from being a full-time sort of stop motion guy to being a toy designer. So that's kind of my day job. So I design toys. But I've also been teaching stop motion for about 26 years.
We met at Columbia. We were TAs in the animation department on the 9th floor back in the day.
Right.
And you worked on my film, Cat and Rat. Yeah, so these were the drawings where they came to life, simple drawings,
Right.
pencil of a cat and a rat, and they kind of meet each other. And then eventually they go into color, with actual cell paint back then.
Hand painted cells.
Yeah, and that took a while just to get to that point. We actually got some 3D in there, and these are the actual puppets, which I don't know what happened to them.
Oh my gosh, look, I had a neck back then.
I know.
That was a fun time. I think it took us like 2 days to shoot that.
We did all the stuff down in the 8th floor and the other animation camera. And there's the Oxberry you worked on, and
those are still there, shockingly.
Really?
They dry their laundry on it, but they're still there. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. We were under a lot of pressure for some reason. I remember animating in that room.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. We were just really, really in a hurry.
I guess back then other people were using the room, and you had to like reserve it.
Yeah,
and you were
and I think I was actually working, and you said, "Please take the day off. I will pay you to be here and help me." I think that's what happened. I could be wrong though, and I probably was working.
Did I pay you? Did I pay you?
Maybe you didn't. I think you still owe me like $5.
Oh yeah, I better write a check.
Yeah, you left a $5 bill in the glove compartment of that car. I appreciate
there we go.
Yeah, that was amazing. That was a lot of fun. You thanks to you, I have one IMDb mention.
Wow.
I think you filled that out and happened to mention. I think only in the credits was my name misspelled, but at IMDb it was.
I regretted that because it was like at the last thing you came up and go, yeah, it was good. My name's misspelled. I was like, oh no! And
but that's when you had to hand paint those titles. So
yeah.
And everything was shot on film. Like I was just saying, I've always often said this to my students. You don't know how lucky you are, because they have, like, I'm sitting on my laptop right now, and when I shoot my stop motion now, it's a laptop, it's a camera, and if it goes wrong, I already know it. I can toggle back and forth. We were shooting in the dark. We didn't even know if that was going to turn out. If you remember, you had to wait like 2 weeks for rushes to show up, and it was on 16mm film, and we were animating and hoping that the exposure was right, the animation was decent. Like I would have loved to reshoot half of the stuff I did when I went to school, because I know I could do better.
Yeah.
But we didn't even know what we were shooting, and now it's so much easier.
Yeah.
Stop motion is still difficult to do, but because of technology, it's so much easier. It's incredibly easy. And did you win a car that you didn't want?
I did, and
didn't I buy that car?
You bought that car, yes.
My first job out of college was working at Sinnott & Associates, and we worked on Captain. You're there too. Captain Crunch, McDonald's commercials,
right?
And we were part of that whole crew of cell painters. I think you moved up to animating and doing some in-betweening, right?
Yeah.
And I did a little bit of in-betweening as well, but there was just hours upon hours of painting cells. And, there's worse jobs, but I think we were making a pretty decent bit of cash back then.
And then I remember working for your old Animator.
Paul Gessel and Marie Sankner.
Yeah. I got to work on a
Oh,
Hamburger Helper.
yeah.
I remember you were assisting him a lot.
Right. I did lighting. I did some motion control stuff, and I assisted him. And I ended up doing a tiny bit of animation with him, but it was a lot of fun. You animated for a Western thing, and you did a silhouette, or actually, it was a full-on drawing of a cowboy leading a horse. And there were little cutouts. Maybe you don't remember
I
this, but
remember that one.
it was
Yeah.
a cowboy leading a horse, and it was replacement animation. It was a cycle, and you animated it through the scene. And then I think another time you animated what was it, a tumbleweed or something like that.
I do remember I did some pixie dust.
Yeah, yeah. I remember
Was
that
the one
too.
where he had a wand, and he
Right.
hits the plate and it turns into a plate of food. And I remember not knowing how to do pixie. I just kind of each drawing took me about a half hour to do, because there's all these, everything's animated on this thing, and I'm trying to do it the right way. And I'm thinking, and Paul's like, oh, he's flipping through it, and he's like, yeah, okay, I see. I won't need these. Yeah, we'll probably just take that one out, and that's another half hour, and that's another hour, that's hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Yeah, this looks good. We can use this.
His run throughs, because that, again, we shot on film only, and on that we shot on the big format, like whatever they were shooting on real film. So a 35 millimeter camera. His camera was a Mitchell, and I used to be able to load that thing and blindfolded in the dark. I could load that thing. I got to know the equipment really well, but his run throughs of his animated sequences were better than any of the animation I could do. And he was just kind of playing with it, and the animation was always beautiful. He had such exquisite timing, and I learned a lot from watching him do all that. And I'm still trying to get better. I'm still animating and practicing and trying to make my acting skills as a stop motion guy better. Because if you don't do it enough, you just forget. It's easy to teach people and to see what they're doing wrong, but then when you sit down and do something very complicated, you end up realizing, wow, there's so much subtlety in this. There's weight shift, and there's arcs, and there's just so much. And I still enjoy learning every day. So, and teaching my students, I've learned so much, because I'm teaching them, and they'll think of something or say something, and then it makes me think of it in a different way. Or I have students that are now doing stop motion. I have a couple of students that are working at Leica right now, which is great. There was a third one there, and he's moved over to the Pinocchio production for Del Toro's Pinocchio. When I hear from them and I talk to them, and they tell me about some of the techniques they do and some of the materials they use, it's just amazing. So it's a lot of sharing, and people still call me and ask me questions that have been out of school for 20 years. It's amazing. Yeah. So I've had some of my students come through, and they certainly thank me for my help, but they were already good when I met them, because they have that passion and they have that focus, and that's really what you need. It's amazing, because you can have a full class full of people, and not everybody's into it, but then you get those handful of people who are so focused and really want to do it, and those are the people who follow through. And I will teach anybody who wants to learn, and the more they want to learn, the more I want to teach them. So it's a really great relationship that way. And but then there are others who just kind of skate through. They try it, they're not sure if they like it, and there's all kinds of other kinds of animation to do. So, but I think it's very rewarding. If it paid a little bit better, I would probably just retire and be a teacher. But they don't pay the most.
Yeah. Hold on a second. So you mentioned out of school you got more into other things besides stop motion. You got into making toys. I saw on your website you have a section just devoted to all the toys that you kind of came up with.
And I work for a company called Big Monster Toys. It was BMT at the time when I first started. I was doing all kinds of animation here in the city, doing some commercials, doing some like a 401k plans, or some kind of dry animation you end up doing throughout the years. And it started drying up. There was just something going on in the city that there was just no more animation. And my friend Alan Ozark said, hey, you might as well try to go to BMT because you sculpt, you know how to make molds, you sculpt in miniature. So I went there to get a job, and I had 3 interviews, and I brought all kinds of stuff to show them, and I brought an armature, and I brought some puppets, and so they liked me. They thought it was interesting, and they said, "Why don't you come up with some ideas and come back?" So I went and come up with a bunch of ideas. Never thought I could come up with a toy idea in my life, but then I said, you know what, I'm going to try to do this, and so I came up with some lame ideas, and I built a couple of prototypes. And I go back for the second one, and all the partners are there. There were 5 partners, so there's 5 grown adults all in this conference room, and so I'm going through the pitch again, and they're saying, okay, and I'm kind of wrapping things up, and I happen to bring out this like a miniature dwarf from playing D&D. It's just like a little lead figure, and as soon as I brought that out, this one partner said, you know what, let's get this guy in here because he can sculpt really small. They brought in some stuff. Could you sculpt something like this? I said, sure. How long would it take? I could probably do that in a few hours. A few hours. It took this guy 2 weeks. So I did all the song and dance, and then I got hired, and which was exciting. And I started working on Mighty Max, and that was out in the 90s. And I ended up becoming not just a sculptor, but I ended up becoming a designer. So I helped come up with some of the ideas. It was a big group of people working together. So sculpting, mold making, design, I did a little bit of drawing. But that making toys, you have to kind of be a jack of all trades. So I ended up learning a little bit about electronics, a little bit about engineering. We record voices, we edit, we do everything. It's a lot of song and dance. And so we come up with the ideas, and we show them to the big wigs like Mattel and Hasbro. And if they like our prototype and our idea that we come up with, then they basically license it from us. And then the more of those toys that sell, the more money we get. So I've been doing that for now 26 years, and I've done Barbies, I've done games, I've done boys' toys, girls' toys. I have an Uno game out this year called Uno Showdown. This is designed by my friend Bill Paxton. There it is. So it's Uno Showdown, and you put these cards in here, and you each kind of challenge each other to hit these paddles, and it flies up in the air. So this is like the 50th anniversary for Uno. And we designed this thing, and we called it like Flip Out or something. And it was designed like 8 years ago. And we kept on trying to sell it as a different game. And we showed it originally as Uno. They didn't want to do it. And then 8 years later, they said, hey, let's do this thing. So you come up with a lot of ideas every year, and only a handful of them get made. So there's a lot of rejection, but you get thick skin when you do it, when you're in the toy business. But like I said, I've had Barbies, I've had dolls. I've got a doll line in Italy called Ciccio Bello. It's called Ciccio Bello. I can't remember the rest of it, but I'm hoping that they're going to come to the States. So I usually work with two or three people, and we come up with a design and make that one prototype. And then we hope that they'll want to make it. But then it has to jump through all these hoops and try to make it in. And then if it doesn't cost too much, they'll make it. So I do that. And then also on the side business, I'm a sculptor. And as you mentioned, I have sculptures at zoos. I have some at Brookfield Zoo in Chicago and the Lincoln Park Zoo. I have some at a few more museums and zoos around the country. And that was just a fluke. I happened to be working with somebody who has a roommate that worked at the zoo and found out they were looking for an orangutan head. So I got the guy's name. I sculpted a little orangutan head in a couple hours. And then I just mailed it to the guy. I just like messenger right to the guy's office. And that got me hooked on doing wildlife sculpture. So I did that, and I still do it on occasion. And then I have a really eccentric client who has me do bears. And I sculpt a lot of full-scale bears. I've done 14-foot fountains. They do some in bronze.
Is that Herschel the bear?
Yeah. That's
okay.
one of the first full-size bears I did. He's kind of a greeter bear. There's my guy sitting there tipping his hat, and then there's big statues on either side.
I mean, I looked at your website, and you've got different costumes, and if you look at the Halloween stuff, you made a giant at one time.
I made 2 giants. Of course, you can never just have one giant.
Yeah, no.
One is really a triclops, and the other one was a giant. but they're both they fill the room. But I had to disassemble one because I set up my set back there because I'm working on a film with my brother Mark, and it's called Fox in the Shadow. And here's one of the puppets here.
Oh, wow.
Fox.
Oh, nice.
She's made out of cast foam. So she's all. I started it 2 years ago with my brother, but the script wasn't right, and I've had another alumni. His name is Mark Protasevich, who went to Columbia College, and he helped rewrite the script. It's about the fox who represents nature, and the shadow of man, who is this full sort of silhouetted character, represents mankind and how they disrespect the earth, and how they kind of, it's a very timely story, because nature is obviously trying to keep this, is looking at the earth as where it lives, and man just kind of takes over and puts his footprint on it and all that. And
he is powerful. He is important. I will not tolerate another word of your nonsense.
Messes with it. So there's a back and forth between these two characters. But the whole world is made up of recycled paper, and because it's kind of in the same sensibility of my brother's art. My brother Mark has been doing 2D art forever, and a lot of times some of his characters are mounted, unmounted old book pages, and he'll paint on top of that. So I said we should just make the world out of these old books. So that's what we're doing. We're kind of creating this forest, this birchwood forest out of old paper, recycled materials. We try not to spend a ton of money on the film. We're kind of doing it for almost nothing. And we're trying not to do, produce a lot of things for making this film that we'll have to throw away. So the most sophisticated stuff we're doing are these molds that I was just showing, but the rest of it's all just found objects and handmade. So wow. It's a lot of fun. So now we've got a new script. I've got alumni recording it. I'm hoping to have some students help shoot it. And we've been super busy just trying to make this thing that started off small and is now like a 7-minute long film. And it just grows and grows and grows, and as you probably know.
Yeah.
So all my techniques for making puppets just becomes a little bit more sophisticated. I'll animate it, not like it, and then I'll want to make some changes. So since I have access to 3D printers, and I now digital sculpt. I've been digital sculpting for like 3 years or 4 years now. So I've been transforming some of the stuff that I do in the physical world to the digital world, and then print it out and make molds. So like the molds for this arm right here. So this is a beautiful silicone arm.
Ooh.
Yeah. And I'll send you a clip of this character as well.
Wow.
And I sculpted that arm digitally, and then there is the 3D printed arm molds.
Wow.
So they're super clean. I only had to make one arm, and then I just did a mirror image of it. But that gets sandwiched together with my armature inside, and it's filled with silicone. And I made this one armature, and I said, you know what? It's just not good enough. This film is becoming bigger and bigger, so let me make the puppet a little bit more sophisticated. And because I just wasn't happy with it, so I just kept on improving on what I do, and it makes it easier to animate, and it's more fun to do. So I'm constantly trying to improve and kind of widen my skill set. The first time I ended up getting a job with the Lincoln Park Zoo, they wanted to do these faces, and I had never worked in bronze whatsoever, so I didn't even know what to do. So I started doing some research. I found a foundry here in Chicago called Wagner Foundry. And so the way that process works is that you have, you make your original, you just sculpt it out of soft clay, and then you make a mold. And then that mold gets taken to the foundry, and then they brush wax in it. And there's you do 20 layers of wax till it builds up to a certain thickness. Then they go through the lost wax process where they're dipping it, and they kind of create this shell around it, melt everything out, and then pour bronze into it. So they do all the heavy lifting, and they do all the casting. And then depending on the project, I will sometimes pick up the raw bronze, and I'll grind it and chase it, they call, like you're pounding out some of the imperfections, and you throw a patina on it. It's just amazing because bronze is a kind of a soft metal. So even though it's metal and it's in bronze and it's going to last for decades, people just touching it change it. The oils from their skins, and you've seen like the Lincoln Memorial where the nose is very shiny. So Lincoln Park Zoo has like 1 million people go through it a year, and not everybody, but many people are touching these sculptures that have been there forever, and you could see what interests, what draws their eyes, and how they touch it, so that the nostrils are burnished. So I've done all the great apes. I've done some seals that were there. As wolves for Lincoln Park Zoo. I never thought I would be doing things in bronze, but I really prefer it. It's got such a rich and deep quality to it that just is amazing. And of late, I've been kind of doing faux bronze. So I make it look like it's made out of bronze, and I paint it with bronze paint, and it's kind of like some trickery, but it's all made out of fiberglass, which is a lot less expensive and not as heavy, but it still looks pretty nice. So I've been doing a lot of that. And then with Big Monster Toys, I had to make their logo, not the logo, but the mascot. Our friend Doug Snook designed that. And then I did not only one, but 2 sculptures. And one was for Comer Hospital. They basically, it's Comer's Children's Hospital in Chicago. And they ended up taking our character, and we called him Remock, which is Comer backwards. Very clever. And I made a young version of it. And there was some electronics guy who we work with who created a program. So when you touch his feet, he laughs and stuff like that. So we just thought, our bosses said, let's donate this thing to the hospital. We just thought it was going to be there for a while, but now it's the official mascot. And not only is it embroidered on the doctor's jackets, and they have stuffed animals, there's also a mascot outfit that they walk around and do things with. So it kind of blew up. So there's a character that I ended up sculpting that a friend of mine designed, and it just has a life of its own. It's amazing what art does. Sometimes it just gets away from you. I live vicariously through my students now, because I got a really nice message in LinkedIn from a student from a long time ago. His name is Daniel Lopez Munoz. And hopefully I'm pronouncing his name properly, but I find out he's been at Pixar forever, and he's a wonderful artist. It was so nice. He just said, "Oh, I saw you on LinkedIn, and I just want to tell you that you just tell this story." And it was kind of this story I would tell about how to deal with clients who want to change things, and they're looking through a camera, and they go, "You know what? I really like the way that tree looks." And I go, "Okay, give me a moment. You turn around. I'll move the tree." And then I move the tree. I don't even move the tree. I wait a moment, and I say, "Okay, take a look now. How does it look?" And they look through there and go, "Oh my gosh, that's perfect." And I go, "You know what? Thank you, because without you, this would have been imperfect." And before that, Marie and Paul Jessel taught me this thing where they do all the art direction, and they make this thing look perfect. And then it was a cheese shop for a Hamburger Helper commercial. So it's beautiful. And they're just spending hours moving everything and doing all the lighting. I was helping with the lighting and stuff. And then they just took this ugly block of cheese and put it right in the middle, and then called the client over to check it out and say, "What do you think about this?" "Oh, well, we love this, except for that block of cheese." So they put something in for them to take out. So that's a story I used to tell to my students all the time. And here, this guy who is at Pixar, and he's like a bigwig, says that I remember that story and I use it all the time. And that made me feel so good, because it's he's been doing this forever, and feel like I've been doing it forever. Yeah. So it's great to feel like my legacy are some of the stories that I've told and some of the things that I do. Not that I'm a famous guy at Pixar, but it's kind of fun to think that some of our students are there.
Yeah.
But I'm always so happy to hear that my students are doing well. It's fantastic. So that's just great that's kind of our legacy, is all the people we've talked to and share our stories and experiences with. And that's more exciting than anything that I do with toy design. I enjoy toy design, certainly, and sculpting, but it's that interaction and just finding somebody who wants to learn, and then making that connection with them, and then hearing about it years later that we helped them, even in a little way. That's the amazing part.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on Animated Educated. It's been great to see you again after all these years, and if anyone's interested in seeing more of your work, where would they see that?
Well, if you go to my Instagram account, and that is Dino, D-I-N-O Crisanti, Crisanti. On Instagram, that's where I post the most recent things that I do. I do have a website, Dino Crisanti Sculpture.com, but it's kind of old and I haven't touched it for a while. But reach out to me on Instagram, follow me, check out some of my projects, because I'm working on a film right now, and I'm always posting weird things that I make. So that would be the best way to do it. And Jim, it's great to hear from you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, it's great. Well, we have to stop doing every 35 years. We have to do.
Yeah, we probably won't be able to do much in 35 years.
Yeah, I think we'll be just real old. And, I was Dino.
Don't you owe me some money or something?
Is it? It's tapioca night. I have to go.
Well, you haven't changed much, I'll tell you.
Yeah, we haven't either. You're doing great. I mean, it's good to see all of the work that you've been working on, and you know, you just kept going, and you're teaching, and you're trying to get other people involved and all that. So
that's great, and I'm so happy, and I'm glad you told me about a few of the commercials that you did that I've enjoyed over the years. I didn't know that you were connected to them, so that was great. The M&M commercials, that was really cool. Now I get to tell my students and my daughters who think I'm always name dropping. It was great catching up and hearing some stories I haven't heard in a while.
Well, thanks again. All right, we'll see you.
Take it easy.
Well, if you want to see more about his work or anything, it's right here. Here's a Instagram link you can go to. And if you enjoyed this episode and like to be a subscriber, just push that button right there, and that'll do the trick. Also, the 500th or 1,000th subscriber does get a special prize. And if you enjoyed that, we have a video up here, and we have another one over there that's pretty good too. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time on Animated Educated.